The town of Silent Hollow was a place time had forgotten. The houses stood empty, windows like vacant eyes. Weeds choked the gardens, and the streets were cracked and overgrown. The townsfolk had long since moved on, leaving behind only whispers and shadows. At the edge of town, shrouded by gnarled trees, stood the library. Its stone walls were crumbling, and ivy crept across its face like grasping fingers. The air around it hung heavy with silence and the weight of forgotten stories. The library door creaked open with a mournful groan. Dust swirled in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced the gloom. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the musty odour of aging paper. Rows upon rows of books lined the shelves, their spines faded and brittle. It was a place where words went to sleep and stories waited to be reawakened. Clara had always been drawn to forgotten things. There was a certain allure to the discarded and the overlooked. So when she stumbled upon Silent Hollow during one of her explorations, she felt an immediate pull towards the imposing old library. It stood like a solitary sentinel, guarding secrets whispered on brittle pages. Clara pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the smell of old paper. She ran her fingers along the spines of forgotten books, their titles barely visible beneath layers of grime. The silence was both unsettling and exhilarating. It was as if the library itself was holding its breath, waiting for her to break the spell. The library seemed to hum with a strange energy. Clara wandered through the stacks, her fingers trailing along the spines of countless books. She could hear the rustle of pages turning, even though she was alone. Whispers seemed to emanate from the very walls, faint and indistinct, like the echoes of long-forgotten conversations. A shiver ran down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind through the broken windows sounded like a whisper. It was as if the library itself was alive, breathing around her, watching her with unseen eyes. Deep within the library's shadowy heart, Clara discovered a small alcove. A single ray of sunlight illuminated a table where a leather-bound book lay open. Its pages were thick and yellowed, the script elegant and unfamiliar. As Clara reached for the book, the words on the open page seemed to shimmer and shift. "Write your truth," the book whispered, its voice a mere breath against her skin. The words seemed to resonate deep within her, sparking a fire in her imagination. Clara felt a strange compulsion to obey, to pick up the worn quill resting beside the book and pour her thoughts onto the empty pages. Clara's fingers trembled as she picked up the quill. It felt strangely warm in her hand, as if imbued with a life of its own. As she began to write, the words flowed effortlessly from her pen, each stroke imbued with a strange power. She wrote about her loneliness, her dreams, her fears. She wrote about the forgotten town and the whispering library. The more she wrote, the stronger the connection to the library grew. She felt a presence surrounding her, a chorus of unseen observers. Their whispers seemed to weave themselves into her words, their stories intertwining with her own. Fear warred with fascination as Clara delved deeper into the mysteries of the book and the library that held it captive. The whispers grew louder as Clara continued to write. They swirled around her, whispering her name, telling her secrets. She recognized some of the voices. They belonged to the townsfolk of Silent Hollow, their stories etched into the very fabric of the library. A young woman, her eyes filled with unshed tears, whispered of a broken heart and a promise betrayed. An old man, his voice raspy with age, spoke of a life filled with regret and the longing for a second chance. They were trapped, their souls bound to the library, unable to find peace. Section 7. Shadows and Screams. The whispers escalated into screams. Shadows stretched out from the bookshelves, reaching for Clara with long skeletal fingers. Faces contorted in anger and despair swirled around her, their voices a cacophony of pain and longing. Panic surged through Clara. She threw the book down, but it remained open, the words on the page glowing with an eerie light. The screams intensified, piercing her eardrums, threatening to drag her down into the darkness that held the souls of Silent Hollow captive. Section 8. The Price of Curiosity. Clara scrambled to her feet, her heart pounding in her chest. She had stumbled into something ancient and powerful, something that she didn't understand. The library, once a place of quiet refuge, had become a prison of her own making. She had unlocked the door to their cage, and now they were desperate to escape. With a surge of adrenaline, Clara ran towards the library doors. She could hear the screams echoing behind her, the pounding of unseen feet in pursuit. The doorknob felt icy cold against her hand, but she managed to fumble it open and escape into the relative safety of the fading light. Section 9. Haunted by the Past. Clara didn't stop running until she reached the outskirts of Silent Hollow. She glanced back at the imposing silhouette of the library, its windows dark and lifeless. But even as she put distance between herself and the town, she couldn't shake the feeling that a part of it was now a part of her. The whispers followed her home, faint but persistent. She could feel their presence in her dreams, their stories woven into the fabric of her thoughts. The souls of Silent Hollow were trapped inside her, their voices a constant reminder of the price of her curiosity. Section 10. The Library's Tales. Clara couldn't escape the library or the stories it held captive. The leather-bound book lay open on her desk, its pages filled with her writing, now interspersed with tales whispered to her by the restless souls. The book had become a conduit, a bridge between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. Driven by a sense of responsibility and a touch of fear, Clara continued to write. She knew that their only hope for peace rested on her ability to tell their stories, to give voice to their silenced cries. She was their only hope, their only connection to the world they had left behind. The library may have been forgotten, but its tales lived on, whispered on the wind and etched onto the pages of a single leather-bound book.